Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Top Flight Pod. You know what it is. You know what we're here to do. We're back on screen today. Beautiful Austin, Texas. I'm with my G Primo. It's Super Bowl Sunday, mate. We are recording this EP a little bit after the halftime show concluded. Of course, that was one of the main things that I was excited about this Sunday. I'm sure you were also kind of waiting to see the Bad Bunny concert in the middle of a football game at Levi Stadium in the Bay Area. Shout out to my G Dorian. But Primo, before we get into the episode today, what did you think about Bad Bunny's performance halftime show? I mean, personally, for me, mate, I really like the message. I think what he said and the message through his performance was absolutely beautiful. I got chills. I got chills down my spine. I saw them. I saw them pop up on my skin whenever Bad Bunny said that the only reason why he is in the Super Bowl halftime show performing today is because he never stopped believing in himself. And he was looking right at the camera, almost made you feel like he was looking right at you. And I hope millions of kids, millions of Latino, Hispanic, whatever country you are from, I hope you got inspired with that message. And no, I think it was a success on Bad Bunny's part. But what did you think of it, mate? It's a big talking point.
Huge talking point. That's all I've been hearing this past week. But it was a good show. I really enjoyed it. I watched it with my wife. And I think probably one of the first times that in a while that I've watched the whole halftime show. Really watching it and really engage. It was fun. It was entertaining. It's good music at the end of the day. For even if you don't know Spanish, the music's good. It's good music. Makes you want to move, makes you want to dance. And then, like you mentioned, the message at the end of the day, great message. Um, but overall, I think it was great. I enjoyed it. It was the game was a little slow, kind of before the halftime show, so that really kicked it up, and I think got people more excited about it. But very very good show, very good. I enjoyed it.
No, solid take there, Primo. I mean, I think we can maybe speak for a lot of the folks that listen to this pod. They were waiting for that Bad Bunny show, and I think they got what they expected, what they wanted. I had a little bit of side bets at work. We were wondering what the first Bad Bunny song was gonna be, but it was Titi Me Preguntó, and it was awesome. And it's just the current state that the country is in right now. It's very, very difficult, and a lot of people wanted to stop this from happening, and they couldn't. And Bad Bunny really did a lot for the Latin American community tonight. And I hope that this is not, it's not the beginning, because this movement has been going on for quite some time, but it is a defining moment in Latin American history in this country. And I hope that a lot of people that maybe had a negative view about what they were going to see tonight, hopefully after they saw the message. I mean, there was a lot of positive things that were going on in that halftime show. I mean, there was a couple that got married on stage, right? So, I'm hoping that if you had a negative maybe thought process going into the Super Bowl halftime show, hopefully after seeing what we saw tonight, maybe it changes your opinion a little bit about El Conejo Malo. But that's enough on the Super Bowl halftime show, mate. I mean, we're not even talking about the game because it was absolutely boring. And last thing I want to say on that is, if I ever hear anybody complain that a soccer game is boring, I'm going to reference this Super Bowl, because it was probably one of the worst ones I've seen in a long time. Some folks are going to come out and say, oh, it was a defensive Super Bowl. It was won by defense. There's been plenty of soccer games that end like that, and you still give criticism to a 90-minute soccer match that was quote-unquote boring for you. But all righty, mate. Shout out to everybody on the Discord. Shout out to everybody that is a Patreon member. We appreciate y'all support 100%. The conversations were pretty electric when the St. Louis match was going on. A lot of stuff that was being said on the chat was great. But Primo, I want to get into tonight's episode by starting off with that exactly. Now, Austin FC went up to the Coachella Valley Invitational in Indio, California. I really wanted to be there. We wanted to take a couple of the crew up there. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it up there. Folks in the chat know exactly why. I don't want to get too much into it. But we're lucky enough to see these games streamed, right? Now, Austin FC took on St. Louis City at the Coachella Valley Invitational for their first game of 3, and it was streamed, like I said. However, and unfortunately, Austin FC did fall against St. Louis, which was a bit of a complete team. I'm not talking about Austin. I'm talking about St. Louis. They had most of their guys out there. Austin with some key pieces still missing in the attack. And I don't want to use that as so much of an excuse. But the reality is that when you don't have Brandon Vasquez, Facundo Torres, Myrto Uzuni, and Owen Wolf, who was the most successful person in front of goal for Austin FC last season, it's hard for me to really cast judgment on a game like this with so many people missing, and also when it is pre-season, Primo. I want to get your thoughts on this match. We're going to get through the starting 11, the changes that were made in the second half, and some things that we saw in the match. But your initial reaction, right? What did you think of this 1-0 defeat to St. Louis? It's preseason. It's the Coachella Valley Invitational. A lot of these guys are still new. You're still missing a lot of your players in the attack. I know Coach Nico is going to be thinking that himself. But what is Primo thinking after this 1-0 defeat?
I think that the team is definitely trying to still find themselves a little bit. You still see some of the new guys kind of trying to fit themselves into the team. If I'm being honest, a little sloppy on our end. I think a lot of bad decision making. I think at the end of the day, it's just things that can easily be cleaned up, especially once you get your main guys in there. We're yet to see Facundo Torres, who's I think everyone's still waiting to see him. And honestly, I wouldn't mind if we don't see him until the first game of the season. And so I know he's practicing with the team. I know those, even though they're not seeing minutes, they're still involved with the team. But St. Louis came out kind of as obviously the better team. A lot of possession on St. Louis' side. That I think eventually just got them that goal. So. I think both teams played a good game. It's just St. Louis just coming up on top.
Agree with you 99%, mate, on what you just said. The only thing that I would push back on, the only thing that I would disagree with is the way that St. Louis got their goal, right? Because it was pretty evident. It was quite clear if you were watching the match at home or wherever you were at, or if you were there at the Coachella Valley Invitational. Shout out to the lads and shout out to the lads at Moon Tower, but more importantly, the people at Swoon Tower that were there, the Crinolas. Shout out to them. And I want to bring up something real quick because on their story, they mentioned like, hey, I thought it was a rule that you couldn't swim at soccer tournaments. And that's true. When I was a youngster, when I was playing with Vipers, our coach wouldn't let us get in the hotel pool because it would get us tired when we were in the middle of a tournament. It was just about relaxing. You could maybe put your feet in the water, but you couldn't swim. So they were saying, hey, why are we seeing the boys at the pool? Hey, maybe they're just chilling. We don't know if they're really swimming. But take care of those muscles, guys, because they're going to be jelly. However, they do have a long break at the Coachella Valley Invitational. When I was playing in those tournaments, it was Saturday and Sunday, games back to back to back. So it's much different. But no, it was clear that if you were watching this game, St. Louis did control a big chunk of this match. Austin FC was, I guess I want to say that their structure in the back was pretty good. A lot of these guys are, well, not all of them, but you have John Bell, who did come in late in the match. He is one of the new guys. Guilherme Biro, he's an all-star from 2025. That's his position at left back. Johnny G still filling in for Mikkel Dessler on the right. But the reason why I bring up, the defense side of things is because you had Svatok in there, mate, and he's only been training for very few. He doesn't have that many training sessions underneath his belt. So, they're still getting the rust off. They're still trying to get things going or whatnot. It is preseason, but you mentioned how there was a lot of, there was some sloppiness. There were some passes that I think also should have been completed. There was one instance where I believe there was a ball played back to Brendan Heinzike, and Beto just kind of Heinzike kind of just throws his hands up in frustration. And that kind of just summed up a lot of the passing play for Austin FC. And the thing that I wanted to disagree with you, Primo, on what you just said is that to me, St. Louis, I felt like they got their goal because of a high aggressive line. They say that the best defense is offense, or the defense starts in offense, or however that saying goes. But Austin FC got caught out trying to play out the back. And I feel like we've said that a bunch of times. Austin FC is a team that ever since Josh Wolf was here, their philosophy has sometimes been to build out the back. And we've seen that happen in modern football a lot of the time. So I'm not criticizing that style of play. I want to give credit to St. Louis for being able to break up that play, that quick 1-2 pass between Danny Pereira and Bersard Salovic. It ended up in an easy go-ahead goal against Brad Stuver. But I don't think it was because of St. Louis' possession that they were able to defeat Austin FC, at least with that minimal goal. But their pressure on Austin FC's backline definitely added to this. I think that's the reason why they got the win at the Coachella Valley Invitational. We also mentioned, of course, that Austin FC was missing a lot of their attacking players. And just by looking at the starting 11, we can kind of go through it real quick. Of course, in goal, you had Brad Stuver as captain. I was hearing from people that were at Coachella Valley that Brad Stuver was very vocal. He's always been very vocal, but I think at Q2, maybe sometimes you don't hear that because of the noise, because of La Murga, because of the atmosphere. But at the Coachella Valley Invitational, it's such an intimate venue. You can see the players' facial expressions. You can see all of these things, and you can hear better. And Brad Stuver was being a player coach. I mean, he sees everything. So you got to listen to your goalkeeper when he's screaming out indications, or if he's giving you tips on what to do better on the field. I always listen to my keepers. Now, on defense, Primo, we had Johnny G. I mentioned he was at right back covering for Mikel Dessler. You had Brandon Heinzek and Alexander Svatok, along with Guilherme Biru, completing that back four. You also had in the midfield Danny Pereira, Bersard Salovic, and Irvin Torres. He got the start. The youngster Irvin, really happy for him to be getting these very important minutes. He's now officially a first-team player. So, I mean, he might get some minutes with Austin FC too, but, he has that first-team contract. And honestly, I think my boy Irvin Torres, he might be loving this new first-team contract, because I also want to congratulate him on the birth of his second child. 18 years old, my boy Irvin Torres, two kids. Man, you know what? I need to catch up to my boy. I'm 30. I only got one, and I'm like, man, dude, I need to catch up to Irvin. But no, he got the boy and the girl, nuclear family. If I was him, I'd be like, hey, you know what? I think I'm done. That's at least what I want. But hey, we don't know. Maybe Irvin wants that big family, 4 kids, 5 kids. Who knows? But I'm happy that he got these minutes for Austin FC, and I'm hoping that he builds on this, moving forward. Now, also, on Irvin Torres, I saw him in a very attacking role, Primo. I don't know if you agree with me on that. He was very central. At times, some folks were saying that Austin looked like they were playing with double tens, but Irvin was shifting to the left. He was shifting to the right, and I think he was in a free roam role. You know what I'm saying? He was subbed off later in the game, but he did start this match, like we pointed out, and I'm happy for him. I think he can build off of this, and I labeled him as a possible breakup star for Austin FC in a recent podcast interview that I had with the designated players. Now, in the attack, Primo, up top, you had Jay Nelson, Joseph Rosales, who I want to talk a little bit about, because Coach Nico said that he hasn't trained as a fullback. He's only trained as a winger this preseason, and that's exactly what we saw against the St. Louis side, Primo. He was very up in the attack. He was obviously occupying that left winger slot, and he was in the front line with CJ Fodry, like I mentioned, Jay Nelson, and I guess you can say that this is a very new attack. It's not the complete attack, so I'm not expecting too much from those names that I just mentioned. What I want from those boys right now, especially Jay Nelson and Joseph Rosales, is to just get integrated into this roster, know how CJ Fodry plays, know how Irvin Torres plays, knows what Danny Pereira wants on the pitch, because that's what this time needs to be used for. You need to be able to get comfortable with your teammates, know what they like to do on the pitch, how they like the ball at their feet. Do they like it into space? And I know a lot of folks were very critical of this 1-0 defeat. I was not happy with it at all. But you just have to remember, it's preseason. There's no indication that a good preseason translates to a good season. You can have a bad preseason and have a good season, and vice versa. But if the boys, Facundo Torres, Brandon Vasquez, and Myrto Uzuni, those 3 players, the DPs, if they're ever out in the regular season at the same time, what I saw in the St. Louis game, it just tells me, man, hopefully these guys that are backing up the starters can create something. Because, I don't want to be too critical of this, but Austin does only have 1 goal in preseason so far, scored by Jorge Alastue, assisted by Jay Nelson. And I don't want to say that I'm ringing the alarm bells or anything like that. That's not what I'm trying to do here. But come on, guys. We need to generate some more shots. You need to have some more opportunities in front of goal. And last thing on this rant, Primo, on the starting 11, Coach Nico, he told the media, he said the idea is that Facundo Torres and Myrto Uzuni will be available for the next game. I guess you could say that it was an idea. He didn't really confirm it, but he did say to the media that both of these players were most likely going to be ready for this game. The people didn't see them. The people are waiting to be able to analyze Facundo Torres, what he's going to be for this Austin FC side. But I guess we're going to have to wait. And the next match, Primo, is against the Chicago Fire. That game will not be streamed. The next game after that, which is the third match of the Coachella Valley Invitational, it will be streamed. That one is against Sporting Kansas City. So if you're at the Coachella Valley Invitational, you might get the first peek of Facundo Torres with Austin FC. And if you're back here at home like us, you're going to have to wait until that SKC match. But Primo, real quick, mate, talking about Joseph Rosales, because I think that was a really interesting just really interesting kind of like point in this match, the way that he is positioning himself on the field, how Coach Nico is sending him out there. I mean, what did you see from him in the attack? I know a lot of folks are kind of saying that they might want to see him on the defense more, but this Joseph Rosales in a more attacking role, what did you think of it?
I love it, man. I love it. I love how he's looking out there. I love that that they're allowing him to kind of practice in that position. Kind of, it just gives you an option for someone to slide in if someone gets injured. You can count on Rosales to fill in if you need to. It also gives them practice to for him to go up, and maybe deliver some crosses in. I'm just liking everything about Joseph Rosales right now. I think he's been looking really good this preseason. I think a really solid player, starter, no doubt. And I think maybe they're trying him out right now in that position because of the lack of attacking players that we have right now. And he'll go back to the defensive position once the season starts. But either way, I like him in both. I think he can do a good job in both positions.
100%, man. I've liked what I've seen so far from Joseph Rosales. It's not where he's going to end up as the season progresses. What you're seeing right now is a Joseph Rosales that's getting comfortable with this side, that's getting used to his new position, or, this new position with Austin FC, at least. He's played all over the pitch. We heard it from him when we interviewed him at the St. Davis Performance Center. And no, we're seeing a lot of what Coach Nico was telling the media, the fact that Joseph Rosales has not played, that's not practiced as a fullback this preseason. And of course, we see him very attack-minded versus St. Louis at the Coachella Valley Invitational. Now, I want to mention a little bit of the changes, Primo, that we saw. We talked about the starting 11, but in the second half, there were some changes. Ilya Sanchez came in for Brsar Savovic. I really liked Ilya. He brings some calmness into the pitch. He's not a 90-minute player, unfortunately. I really wish he was. But he is a solid player that can really come in and control your midfield in the second half or in the dying minutes of a game. I'm really excited to see what Roy Ilya Sanchez has in 26 for Austin FC. But what I saw in this St. Louis match, of course, maybe some other folks saw it as well. The calmness, the veteranness of Ilya Sanchez, it was clearly on display. Savo didn't do too bad for himself, but I do want to combine him with Danny Pereira and the goal that Austin FC did concede. There was that 1-2 between those two guys, so that is kind of on them. Now, Dubersarski, he comes on for Danny Pereira. I gave Dubersarski a lot of praise for his performance against New York City FC. I think he's building on that 100%. And then Mateja Djordjevic, he comes in for Svatok. Remember, I mentioned that Svatok has only been training for just a couple of sessions, couple of days with this Austin FC side. And Mateja, he looked pretty good whenever he came in. He's going to be a player that I'm excited to see this season, see what he kind of, turns out to be for Austin FC. I think the very few playing time that he had with Austin last season, I think he really took advantage of those minutes. He didn't look too bad. He didn't look, lights out fantastic, but he came in and held his own. And that's what you want from a player that's coming in new to your roster. Now, also later on, you got Jorge Alastoy for Irvin Torres, John Bell for Brendan Heinzike, Jean Kolmanich for Guilherme Biru, Riley Thomas comes in for Joseph Rosales, and Robert Taylor replaces Jay Nelson there in the attack. Now, Primo, to close out the topic of the preseason game against St. Louis, I just got to ask you, are you concerned about the lack of goals, or are you waiting for the attack reinforcements to arrive? I'm talking Brandon Vasquez, Facundo Torres, Myrto Uzuni, and of course Owen Wolf.
I'm not too worried about it right now.
Mm,
It could be alarming to some people, just because of the last season we've had and how it's
yeah,
looked in the past. So, um,
yeah, it's a good point.
lack of goals have been an issue for us before.
Mhm,
But I think right now it's just the fact that we don't have those players right now.
100%.
Especially our main DPs. We haven't seen any minutes from them. So, um, I think it's going to be a game changer. I think these guys are going to come up and running. I'm excited for Facundo Torres, man. I'm excited to
Exactly.
see what he can provide and what he's used to scoring goals. Myrto
Mhm.
Uzuni, didn't do
Got a
well
lot of proof.
last season, but has something to prove. Owen Wolf, our main guy last season, is recovering along with Brandon Vasquez, but that them two are looking good. It looks like the recovery is coming along pretty well. So I'm just excited to see our attacking players out there. I think once we get the full team, we'll see a huge difference.
100%, man. I'm not ready to lay down the judgment hammer on this preseason game on these players because I still need to see those main players in the attack, just like you mentioned, mate. So if when those players that we mentioned do come back and Austin FC is still struggling to score goals, deep into the season, or not even too deep into the season, but well 5-6 games into the season, I think there needs to be more serious questions that need to be asked, especially the concerns from last year. But Coach Nico does say at the beginning of the year, he said, hey, this season we're putting a lot of emphasis in the attack, the same way that they did in 2024 when the emphasis was put on the defense. And I'm sorry, the same way that the emphasis was put on in 2025 on the defense that made Austin the fifth best defense in the West. So they struggled to score goals, terrible goal differential, but yet they still made the playoffs. They still made the U.S. Open Cup final, and that was off of the merits of Brad Stuver and the way that the defense played for Austin FC, right? So, like I said, if this is a problem that continues well on into the season, if the lack of goals are still there, definitely there needs to be some alarm bells that need to be sounded. But as of right now, we're still waiting on the main guys, pretty much, just like you mentioned. No Facundo, no Owen, no Myrto, no Brandon. So it's hard for me to say, oh, this season is just going to be the same as the last. Well, we need to see what these guys look like. And, well, the first chance is against Chicago. It seems like Myrto and Facundo Torres are going to be back for that game, the second one of the Coachella Valley Invitational. And for the folks back home, you're going to have to wait until that third one against SKC. But last thing on this, the record so far for Austin FC: one win against Louisville, one draw versus San Antonio FC that was 0-0. That's the first game of the preseason, and two losses so far. One against New York City FC in front of the season ticket members at home Q2 Stadium. That was 2-0. And then this one, 1-0 against St. Louis at the Coachella Valley Invitational. So we'll see where the boys land exactly. So best of luck versus Chicago. It is going to be a huge test. I think Chicago is not somebody that you want to mess with right now. They're one of those bullies that you don't want to punch in the mouth because they're definitely going to get you back. So best of luck, boys, with Chicago. Excited to see what's going to happen against SKC, but we will be back to recap that match 100% on the pod. Now, I do want to move on, Primo, to one of the craziest topics that we had to encounter this week. Deadline day drama, as I was saying all over social media, on We're Rushing TV and on my personal accounts on the Discord chat. I was saying this is what Fabrizio Romano took away from us, ladies and gentlemen. The deadline drama. And you got to experience it firsthand as an Austin FC fan. And what am I talking about, Primo? Well, the Myrto Uzuni transfer to Turkey that fell apart in the last minutes of deadline day. And what happened? So let's try to break it down for the folks listening in to the pod. Now, journalist George Sarukas, I'm sorry if I'm, let's just call him George T. He reported that Myrto Uzuni had agreed to personal terms, Primo, with the Turkish side that was apparently after him. He also reported that they had offered Austin FC $6.5 million with a 15% clause of a future sale with add-ons. Now, as this was going on, of course, I'm gonna maybe pat my back a little bit. You don't get to the position where We're Austin TV is without accumulating a couple of connections, maybe a couple of sources or whatnot. And we made some moves, Primo. I got moving, and I asked around. I say, and I got my answer. The transfer had fallen apart. Our sources confirmed that it was dead in the water, and Myrto Uzuni was staying with Austin FC, is staying with Austin FC for the 2026 season. So another thing that we wanted to mention is that the comments on social media were more in favor of letting Myrto go, even with a huge loss, Primo, that Austin FC would have taken on. Austin signed Myrto Uzuni early 2025 for 12.3 million from Spanish side Granada. He was a monster. He had a record-breaking season there. So it was very difficult for me to think that Austin would sell a key piece so late into the offseason, and at such a discounted price. Usually Austin is the one going out. We saw that they did that with Facundo Torres. They got him on the discount. And although they took a small loss on Osman Bukhari, Primo, when they sold him to Poland, maybe like $1 million loss, I found it very difficult to believe that Roda Borrell and the FO were going to be okay with losing almost the 50% of their investment with Myrto Uzuni. And the main question that I have with this topic, with this segment, Primo, is if there's a way for Myrto Uzuni to come back into Austin FC's fans' good graces. Will he ever be a hero for the fans here? Obviously, all he has to do is score goals. That's easier said than done. But, is there a way back for Myrto? And Primo, I just want to get your overall thoughts first on kind of the Myrto Uzuni situation, kind of what was going through your head when this all kind of started popping off, because it came from Turkey first. Then Tom Boger got into the conversation the next day. And then literally hours after, we were able to confirm via our sources that this transfer had fallen apart. So what did you think of this saga that lasted maybe 36 hours? What did you think of it?
It was interesting for sure. So, for something like that to pop up this far into the transfer window. I mean, it was interesting. I didn't think it was gonna happen. Just because of at the time that it was happening. I think it was Turkey's last day, also the Turkish league's last day to make a move. And I think I think that team just went for a Hail Mary with Myrto, like, hey, let's just try it. Let's just see if it works out or not. And hopefully, maybe, I think if they would have thrown an offer maybe sooner, maybe a month, a few weeks ago, and maybe with the right offer, I think this would have happened. I think the only reason it didn't is because of the whole timing of it. But Myrto Uzuni, if he wants, to come into good grace with the fan base, he already has a little bit of heat on him because of last season. He has a little bit of making up there, and then now with this popping up, I think he just has to either completely go off. In the meantime, that Brandon Vasquez is off, or whenever Brandon Vasquez does come back, be a team player, play your role. You have two other guys that are good at scoring goals as well. So be a team player, put yourself, make yourself available in the team. Be that guy. Be a hustler. I know this fan base appreciates guys that fight for this badge and that hustle. And this fan base will come around. But I think as of right now, he has a lot to prove.
Definitely, mate, definitely. And just to kind of walk people through this transfer saga, like I said, it was like a 36-hour thing that was popping off on the TL. At first we had this graphic that we put out, which was the day before Tom Boger got into the conversation. Trabzonspor from Turkey have reportedly shown late interest in Myrto Uzuni as a potential option on the wing. Just like you mentioned, Primo, this was very late. Their literally transfer deadline day in the Turkish Super League. And also with all of this, Primo, I was also reading up. There was this article that I had found from Photosport.com. Apparently, Besiktas had looked into Myrto Uzuni before he came to Austin. Also, Olympiacos had looked into Myrto Uzuni before coming to Austin FC. So this is a player that was very sought out for in Europe before making the move to Austin. Of course, we know that he made the move to Austin after they paid the release clause of 12.3 million. I'm sure there was other teams trying to negotiate him for the low, but Austin FC was a team that ultimately got the services of Myrto Uzuni early 2025. It was in January, February, I think, when he arrived, when we went to go see him at the presentation at was it Captain Morgan Club, when he was introduced to the fans. But no, I thought that was very interesting. And then one more thing I think is very important, we cannot skip over this, is that Football Arena, they put this tweet out. This is like the biggest source of information that I think that we were kind of going off of. They have 1.4 million followers on X, so that kind of tells you maybe everything that you need to know, because the first thing everybody asks is, hey, well, does the source check out? And the sources were checking out from Myrto Uzuni from Turkey, or Turkey is how it's pronounced now, but the Turkish media, they were rolling out with this. But this exact screenshot, this exact tweet was later deleted and erased from X, right? Which I thought was very suspicious, by the way, because if you have a bomb like this, you want to keep it up, because it drives engagement online. It brings people to your page. I'm sure Football Arena needs people to be going on their website and reading whatever they put out or whatnot. But the fact that they took this down, Primo, was a huge red flag to me, also to Verde Nation and everybody in the chat. Now, Verde Nation and We're Austin TV, we were working very closely on this. Whenever I got ultimately the big piece of information that this transfer had fallen through via our sources, I reached out to him. I was like, hey, mate, this is what's going on. I was, currently a little busy. I couldn't get to my laptop to make a beautiful graphic like this. So we collaborated on this, mate. Myrto Uzuni staying with Austin FC. And that was kind of the end of it. That was kind of the last of it. And I want to send a shout out to our good friend, Tom Bogert, Tommy Scoops. I don't know who it was, but somebody community noted his tweet, and they said this is false. We're Austin TV already put the information out. I feel bad. I was like, yo, Tom, he didn't deserve that, but they community noted my boy. But Tom Bogert got into the conversation very early in the morning of the transfer deadline date. He says that Trabzonspor, it was in talks to sign out Albanian international forward Myrto Uzuni, pretty much kind of highlighting a lot of the information that we knew the day before. And moments later, hours later, this was kind of explained by us here at We're Austin TV, and just kind of let people know that the transfer was off and it was pretty much over with. Now, with this, Primo, I asked you how, is there a way for Myrto Uzuni to get back into the Austin FC fans' good graces? We also can't forget that earlier in this offseason, there was a transfer rumor that had Myrto Uzuni going to, I forget what the team was, but it was a team in the Serie A. And, a lot of people were wondering, is Austin FC trying to, make a move for Myrto Uzuni, maybe kind of, let go of him or whatnot. And, he's a player that has, high value in Europe. He's a player that has a lot of connections in Europe. His family is still over there. And I wanted to say this today, right now that we're on this segment, that we're on the pod. Myrto Uzuni, is very easy for a player to get back into the good graces of fans. Like I said earlier, you got to score goals, provide assists, win games for your team, right? You got to step up in those big moments. That's what a lot of fans expected from Myrto when he got to Austin after the statements that he, gave out saying that he was coming here to break records or whatnot. The Austin fans didn't really get that version of Myrto in 25. And I want to say that if Myrto Uzuni doesn't get it kicked on, if he isn't hot, I think that there's a possibility that he could be moved in the summer. The winter window, we've seen a lot of teams in Europe use that to maybe push for a title, maybe have a late title charge. But in the summer is when all of their plans can kind of come together. They talk with their sporting directors, they talk with their people that are in charge of transfers or whatnot. And the summer is when those teams in Europe make those moves. And what do we know about Myrto Uzuni, mate? He's a family man. He adores his wife. He has a brand new child. He literally is a huge source of support for his family. And he now owns a hotel, or they're building a hotel from the ground up in Albania. He decided to invest in his home country instead of in other places. He got criticism for that, but he said, no, you know what? I'm investing where I'm from. I respect him for that 100%. But like I said, I strongly believe if Myrto Uzuni does not if he doesn't get hot, if he doesn't get it going before that summer window, I think Austin FC might be thinking about making a move to maybe sell him somewhere in Europe. And I think if that's the case, Primo, a lot of people will be okay with this because you saw the comments on social media. If it was 100 comments, 90 of them were in support of him leaving Austin FC. And that's just a reality. You can go to the comments and you can read it yourself, mate. Another thing, the family factor is huge, mate. It is difficult to be away from your family when you are a family man like Myrto Uzuni. I understand that 100%. It's part of the gig. Maybe some people out there are going to say, oh, well, he should have known. But what we also know from Myrto Uzuni is that he has been waiting for his family to join him in the United States. It hasn't happened yet. And if I'm not mistaken, Albania was placed on a travel ban list by the administration that is currently in the White House right now. And that's a difficult situation, mate. Very, very, very difficult. So I'm hoping that everything lines up for Myrto. I'm hoping that he has a great sophomore year in MLS. But unfortunately, there's also a side of business in this world that is very, very, very cold. And I think, Primo, if Myrto Uzuni is not that guy for Austin FC this year, by the time that the summer window comes around, I think that there's gonna be a high possibility that Myrto Uzuni could be moved on from Austin FC. And like I said, I think it would benefit maybe a lot of people. If Myrto Uzuni doesn't find the best version of himself, he might be keen on finding it in Europe. It's a very important year for him and his country as well. Albania is looking to get into the World Cup. They're in the playoff spot. They're not fully there yet. So think about how important that is for a player like Myrto Uzuni, who has given blood, sweat, and tears to the Albanian national team when he has been called up to join them. So maybe if you have a reaction to that, Primo, before we go on to the next topic. From what we know, what's official is that Myrto Uzuni is staying with Austin FC for 2026, or at least until the next window. What do you think of this?
I mean, so if he does leave in the summer, do you think it would be, do you think the financial part of it would get in the way? So do you think if a team will come in the same way this Turkish team came in, similar offer, do you think it will be easier for Austin to let go in the summer? Or do you think that offer has to be higher for them to just be like, okay, yeah, let's go ahead?
Well, I think the money is one thing, Primo, but I think the fact that Austin maybe didn't have a replacement ready to go is also another huge factor. If you were talking about a potential sale in the summer, well, that gives Austin FC a boatload of time and also a lot of maybe if they want to go after somebody that did their thing at the World Cup. You know what I'm saying? It allows them to, at least from here until the summer, it allows Austin to collect more data to see who we want to go for, who they want to sign to bring to the club. If they do indeed let go of Myrto Uzuni, I'm not in the corner that says, oh, we need to get rid of this guy now. I'm in the corner of, I want to see him develop. I want to see his second season in MLS, because there's been so many players that have come from abroad into this league that in the first season, you can maybe call them a underwhelming signing. But in that second year, they really kick it on. And I'm really hoping that Myrto Uzuni has that kind of moment. I strongly believe that, he himself thinks that he has a lot to prove to this fan base. His character, the way that he carries himself, I don't think that he would want to leave Austin in a, I hate to say it, but maybe like an exit through the back door. I think Myrto has something to prove these fans. He is somebody that, is not going to let this kind of thing brush over so easy. I think, Myrto wants to do well for Austin. He wants to do well for these fans, and he's not going to leave until he does something back for this community. But like I said, if the form isn't there, if the summer comes around and offers are improved for Myrto Uzuni, I see this Austin FCFO really thinking about that transfer, because, like I said, Primo, the money is primary, but the fact that Austin possibly didn't have somebody lined up in this, very short period of time that this Turkish side came in for a late push for Myrto. In the summer, you have time. In the summer, you have time to think about who you're going to bring in, what you can do if you do sell Myrto Uzuni. Maybe they were most likely going to take a loss, Primo. I don't see them being able to get a profit off of Myrto Uzuni, if I'm being quite honest with you. They're going to have to take a bit of a loss if they do move on from him. But if they do, it has to be at the right moment when they have somebody lined up, ready to come in and replace Myrto Uzuni for Austin FC. Because imagine if this went through, Primo. Imagine you take a loss financially. You don't have somebody to replace him right away. And then you probably have to opt for that model where you have 2 DPs and 4 U22s. You get an extra 2 million in GAM. But in my opinion, I'd take the 3DP model any day of the week. And that's just me. I know folks are going to have different opinions. They're probably going to push back on my opinion that I want to see Myrto Uzuni's second season in MLS with Austin FC. But now I'm just looking at that summer window and wondering if that's going to be the moment that Myrto Uzuni does leave Austin FC. And we saw it happen with Buca Primo. Nobody is safe, brother. Nobody is safe in Austin FC right now. If you're not performing as a designated player, the door is there. And if the offer is right, Austin is going to take that opportunity. And Myrto, if he's able to kick it on early on this year, I think it's going to change the view of a lot of fans. And if that summer window does come around, they might think differently. And they might think, well, we're at the middle of our season. Myrto Uzuni is doing good things for Austin FC. If we sell him, it might derail what Austin FC has been doing. But like I said, if that's not the case, if it's still the same problems in the attack, if there's still problems scoring goals, if he's clashing with Brandon Vasquez, if he's not connecting with Facundo Torres, that's just going to push Austin FC more in line to, maybe move on from Myrto Uzuni. But we'll see what happens there, mate. I mean, I think we can kind of, put a cap on this topic because the transfer fell through, and that's just about it. Myrto Uzuni stays with Austin FC at least until the next couple of months for the next window to open, mate. Oof, Myrto. Best of luck, lad. Now, another topic, Primo, or do you have something that you want to add?
No, not much. It's an interesting topic for sure. All we have right now is time to tell. Myrto Uzuni has the time to redeem himself, and I think it's all going to be in the attitude of the player also leading into that window. You have the time to redeem yourself, or prove yourself to another team, whatever your decision is at the end of the day. But the fan base likes players that play for the badge. So hopefully we see that. Hopefully we see goals from Myrto Uzuni. I want to see the 3 DPs link up, score goals together. I think we have 3 decent DPs, I think, for the first time in a while. And I just keep seeing that picture that they took of the 3 of them during that training session.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's such a good picture. So that gave me a little bit of hope. So hopefully they can make something happen, those 3.
Definitely, mate. Now, continuing, with the Austin FC news here on the pod, we had the announcement that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has officially confirmed Austin, Texas as their base camp for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Now, if you thought the comments on the Myrto Uzuni post were wild, take a moment and stroll down the comment section on this post on Instagram. Some people are not too keen, not too happy about this. Other folks are more accepting of it. They see maybe the financial benefit of something like this. And also I noticed we've actually been getting a lot of followers of, I believe, of Saudi Arabian descent or Saudi Arabian fans, because they've been leaving positive comments. You can tell the people that leave the positive comments, you see them right away, their hearts, their comments like, let's go, or, hey, this is exciting. And no, I think that there's going to be, I don't know how many Saudi Arabian people are in Austin, how many are going to travel down here. But, being a boy from Austin, being born here, Primo, I totally hear the people that, because of the human rights things that are, going on over there. But from a football point of view, this is a team that's coming in here for the World Cup. If it was somebody else, like another national team, the reception would have been different, because it's Saudi and the political landscape and the things going on in the world. I understand why the criticism is there. But my initial reaction when I first read this was, hey, that's pretty cool. But then, you start remembering, oh, well, Saudi did this, and oh, well, this is going on in the world, and oh, that, yeah. And it maybe changes your perception. It probably does. But when I initially heard this news, I was like, hey, I mean, Saudi Arabia, a team that's going to be at the World Cup, they're coming to Austin. And hopefully this isn't the only team. I've heard rumors of Germany. I've heard rumors of France. I've heard rumors of the Netherlands. But I strongly believe that Austin could host one more team, Primo. But we'll see what happens there. Now, they're most likely going to be training at Q2 Stadium. I think that they're going to be using that venue. Hopefully, Anthony Precourt and the Austin FC ownership were able to get some kind of financial benefit from this. I think that'll go a long way for them. And also, Austin FC confirmed that they were the ones that, they put out something as well saying that this was going to happen. It wasn't just like rumor or anything like that. But Primo, what's your take on Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, coming to Austin for their World Cup?
It's in. I mean, I think it's a name that a lot of people weren't expecting. I think they were really expecting, because of all we have so many more teams coming into this World Cup. Maybe they're expecting someone that's more familiar, maybe a European giant. I think at the end of the day, I think maybe Saudi just came, with the right bid. Maybe.
Yeah.
I
No, you're
think.
spot on. Real quick, Primo, spot on. I heard rumors before this drop weeks ago that there was big national, there was international teams coming in with big money, and they were bidding for the Austin facilities. And when we found out it was Saudi, they're also synonymous with boatloads of money because of the oil reserves that they possess. So I'm right there with you when you say that they probably had the highest bid. Go ahead, mate.
Yeah, and and that's how it is. These national teams pay, these local facilities, these local teams to use the training facilities there, and Austin has some of the best. We've seen them. We hear it from players all the time. Players that come through the Austin FC, teams that come and visit, that practice at the facilities. The national team, the U.S. national team, I think, has repeatedly said that Austin
Mm-hmm.
has one of the best facilities and that they love whenever they come here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's no brainer that teams were wanting to set up camp here. And so at the end of the day, I think they probably just came with the right bid. I think we are big enough to host another team. So hopefully we see another national team set up camp here. It's just at the end of the day, it's just great to see the World Cup coming together,
Yeah.
and we're starting to see all these teams settle in and name where they're gonna be. And next thing you know, they're gonna come through. We're gonna have a lot of fans, maybe from that national team around here. But at the end of the day, it's World Cup, so it's all coming together. So
100%, 100%. I mean, so we'll see kind of what comes out of this. I think it's more of a financial benefit than anything. Like I said, if you have time, go look at the comments, and you'll get a real idea of how of what the pulse is from at least the Austin FC community on what they think of this move that Saudi did to come to Austin to make it their base camp for the 2026 World Cup. Now, I'm wondering if the green at Q2 Stadium maybe was a factor for them, because they are, a very green national team. You see their jersey right there and whatnot, and you see their logo has green and white, a lot of similar colors to the Q2 Stadium, to Austin FC as well. And well, look, we were even nice enough to the city of Austin to include their new ugly logo that they spent $1 million on, that you probably could have had a kindergartner create for you in art class. But anyways, hey, maybe that's why they brought Saudi, so they can figure a way to kind of get that money back from the logo that was spent. But no, I hope actually when Saudi does arrive, I hope that there's maybe like a press release with the mayor of Austin, something like that. And there should be some kind of relationship anymore, because we know that they were here for the Gold Cup before. They're not a stranger to Austin. Saudi Arabia has been here before. Qatar has also been here as well. Two very rich countries. So we'll see what this kind of turns into. And I'm more excited about the next team that's going to choose Austin as their base for the World Cup. Hopefully there's one more. You still got the you still got the St. Edwards facilities that you could use. I know the Liga MX All-Stars were training over there. There was Leagues Cup teams that were training over there as well. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, Primo. But as of right now, what we know is that Saudi is coming to Austin, and there's a lot of people from that country that are living here that are excited for that. And there's a lot of people that are living here that are not excited for it. And I completely understand it because of everything going on in the world. Football is football, but politics do mix into it, and you cannot ignore it, mate. It is what it is. Alrighty, now moving on to another topic here that we have on the pod, brother. The fact that Austin FC pulled one of the greatest moves in international roster spot history, I might say. This was something that I was very happy and surprised at the same time that happened. I think Rodo Borrell is starting to really understand the MLS rules better than maybe what he did when he arrived to Austin. We have here on screen the club has agreed to trade a 2026 international roster spot to Real Salt Lake until until July 13th, primo, for 235,000 in 2026 GAM. Now, why is this a bit of news? Why is this important? Well, because we know that Austin had two. Now they have one because they are essentially renting it out to Real Salt Lake for almost 300 bands, 235,000. And one thing that I saw very interesting was that Chicago had purchased some international roster spots for about 400K each. But that's a purchase. This is a rental, primo. This is a rental. And I was very intrigued by these things because I didn't really know that they could happen. I think this is the first time that I ever see it. Maybe other folks have maybe seen it happen in the league already. But the official press release goes like this. It says Austin FC announced that the club has agreed to trade a 2026 international roster spot to Real Salt Lake in exchange for the 235K. As part of the agreement, the international roster spot will return to Austin at the opening of the secondary transfer window, which is that July 13th. So, big move by Rodo, very smart by Rodo, and there's still one left, right? There's still one left, but it's going to be two once July 13th comes around. And no, I think RSL maybe did us a favor, pretty much. I think RSL maybe did us a favor by, essentially renting out this roster spot and getting Austin FC that almighty GAM that they desperately need. I mean, we saw the chart when it came out. Austin has the lowest amount of GAM between all the teams in MLS, and you needed to build a roster. You needed to go forward in this league. It's not the most important, type of money when you're talking about building a roster, but it does serve its purpose 100%. Now, like I mentioned, there's still one more international roster spot left, and I wanted to mix it in with the fact that Jorge Alastoy, primo, he is most likely going to be the player to use that last international roster spot. We have here on screen that there's still 3 more games to make the final decision on Jorge Alastoy. Those are words from Coach Nico Esteves. And if they didn't sell both of them, or if they didn't rent out both of them, well, that means that they have plans for their last international roster spot. And I hope it goes to this lad, primo. I really do like the creativity that Jorge Alastoy brought onto Austin FC too, and I think he can bring some of that to the first team as well. But what are your thoughts on this sale, primo? I mean, essentially, they just rented it out to RSL for a good amount of money.
Yeah, it's a good move, I think, on our end. I think it kind of also says that we might be maybe done for this transfer window. Maybe
100%.
we're giving away spots like that. And I mean, at the end of the day, I'm happy with the way the roster got built up. And so if you have these spots left over, why not make some profit out of them? I think Roto is a good asset in that end. Always looking for the best business deals for Austin FC. Always going making the most out of these MLS rules. I think for sure. And that's interesting though. I had no idea that we can quote unquote rent them out or loan them out, and we just get them back at the end of or the start of the next transfer window. I think it's a pretty cool concept. I think it's something that could benefit us if it's used right. But at the end of the day, shout out Roller Borrell. This man knows what he's doing, and I think everyone else would agree.
And also, primo, if we mentioned earlier the possible sale of Myrto Uzuni in the summer. If you are able to move on from him in the summer, as some folks might want Austin FC to do, you essentially get this international roster spot back from RSL. You free one if you do sell Myrto Uzuni abroad back to Europe, and the one that I'm hoping goes to Jorge. That one's going to be taken up 100%, but you'll come back to having 2 when the summer window kicks off. If you do move Myrto Uzuni, that's what I'm saying. But if you don't, you get this one back from RSL and you still have something to cook with in the summer probably the most important summer window, Primo, to bring in a big European talent. It's always in the summer. It's difficult to do that in the winter. Austin did it with Myrto Uzuni, but you saw the ginormous price that they had to pay. So I think in the summer it does get a little bit more easier, and also players are more keen on making these moves in the summer, because in the winter that's right in the middle of their season, wherever they're at. It's tough to make the move from. I'm just gonna throw a name out there from let's say from like a West Ham. It's difficult to leave West Ham in the winter to come to MLS. It's easier to do it in the summer, and that's not just. I'm not just I threw West Ham out there, but that's for every league in Europe. And I'm sure Rodo knows that very well. I'm sure that the recruiting staff knows that very well. And one thing that I've noticed is that they're always one step ahead. I'm excited to see what they got cooking up for the summer. And I agree with you that they're done for this window. I think that the last move that they'll make is Jorge Alastoy, if he gets officially moved up to the first team or not. But I think after that, Austin would be done. If they decide not to give it to Jorge, I fully expect them to sell this if they can, if they're able to. And you see the outrageous prices that some teams are paying for these international roster spots. Rodo Borrell has to be thinking to himself, "Wow, I could really use another 400,000 in GAM. Wow, I could really use another 300,000 in GAM." But the ball is in his court, and Jorge Alastoy has to show this team, has to show Rodo Borrell and Nico Esteves that he deserves that international roster spot. He has the only goal in preseason so far for Austin FC, the only one. But he did miss a couple of chances against St. Louis. So still 2 more games to decide what they're going to do with that final international roster spot. But I think it's a win-win either way. You give it to Jorge, it's a win. You sell it, it's a win as well. So we'll see what happens there, mate. Now, another topic, Primo, of conversation is the fact that Uber is named as the official rideshare partner of Q2 Stadium in a new multi-year deal. Now, the official press release has more information. A quote from President Andy Loughnane. He says, Austin FC's new partnership with Uber will allow our matchday experience to be more seamless from the moment fans leave home to the moment they return. Uber will help improve transportation access at Q2 Stadium while also setting a new standard for how both traditional and autonomous rideshare can function at major live events. Now, Primo, you and I, we don't really take Uber to Q2 Stadium. We have our ways. We have our little cheat codes on how to get around Q2 without having to spend too much of a pretty dime. But if you do use Uber, if you do use these platforms where, you get these rides, if I'm not mistaken, this is going to be it's going to make it easier for you to get to Q2 and hopefully cheaper. That's the thing that I'm hoping for. Cheaper for the fans, because they're already paying a big amount of money in concessions. If you take your car to Q2, parking is a lot of money. If you have a season ticket, you know how those prices can get. They keep going up every year. It's pretty costly to go to a Q2 Stadium, Primo, if I'm being quite honest. You don't see a lot of big families because it's a big chunk of money to take your 3 kids to Q2, you and your wife, on a Saturday night, right? And so I'm hoping that this puts, saves people money. It puts a little bit of change back into their pocket. And one thing I'm gonna say, I have not got on a Waymo yet, but if there's Waymos going to Q2, I'm not gonna lie, Primo, I might get in one just to see what it feels like to drive in a car with nobody in there, just me and I don't know who's driving these things. I think that something came out that they're outsourcing some of it to the Philippines or whatnot, or I don't know exactly what what's going on over there. But I'm very excited to get in my first Waymo, and I think I might do it with this new multi-year deal that's going on. But it's kind of a little bit of random news, Primo. I mean, what do you think of it? It's cool that Q2 Stadium is getting these partnerships with Uber. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that. I like that part of it. I like that, Austin SC is partnering with these huge companies.
Mm-hmm.
It just, kind of lets you know that they're maybe moving in the right direction, like business wise and all that. But for the people that do take Ubers to the stadium, hopefully it does make it easier. Hopefully it is
Yeah.
cheaper, or maybe there's some kind of discount on game days or something like that, is what I'm hoping. It's not easy to get to the stadium. I think, Q2 Stadium, Austin see all that is great, but I think the parking, I think, has always been a little bit of an issue.
Yeah.
It's not the best. People park at the Domain. People park pretty far and walk to the stadium. So hopefully this new partnership makes it easier for some folks.
Yeah.
There's also other ways of transportation. They have the train, the metro rail,
Yeah.
and a couple other things. But um, those those Waymos, like those look crazy, dude. I've
Yeah.
seen some like speeding through sometimes.
Dude, I read something the other day that said that there was a person on a Waymo, in a Waymo on North Lamar, and that the Waymo aggressively cut somebody off, and that the driver in the vehicle that was cut off pulled out a gun and pointed it at the passenger in the Waymo. And I'm sure the person that pointed the weapon to the person that was in the Waymo, I'm sure they was just as confused. They were like, wait, who's driving this thing? You know what I'm saying? Like, so I don't think anything, I don't think there was no shots fired or whatnot. But I mean, imagine the moment of shock that passenger must have gone through to, number one, be like, Waymo, what are you doing? Why are you cutting this person off? And then number two, the person that got cut off does yeah, I don't know how I would react to somebody pulling out a weapon on
I
me in
would
the
have been
middle of the street.
embarrassed if it was that guy that
Road
got out
rage,
of his car.
mate.
I go up to the car all mad and there's no one there.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding, bro. Well, Waymos, man. Honestly, I feel like we're not living in the future, but at the same time, this is the future. I mean, who'd have thought that in our lifetime we would have these driverless vehicles driving people around the
Driving
city of
cars.
Austin, man? I mean, what's next? Flying cars? We got the self-driving. What's next? The flying vehicles? I think they need a little bit more air traffic control laws for that. But hey, we'll see what happens. But no, that was a little bit of a fun news that came out this week. Now, last thing on the pod, Primo, we cannot get out of here without talking about the Austin FC2 boys, and also I'm gonna give some praise to the academy lads. But Ruben Bonachera, left back for Austin FC2, he joins UE Sant Andreu on a 6-month deal. Austin will receive a percentage of any future sale. That is official. This was something that came out of nowhere, I think. But this Austin FC2 side, mate, they're having a lot of changes. There's been a lot of players that have come in through the door, excuse me, and there's a lot of players that are now going out the door. And Ruben Bonachera, I thought he was a great player for Austin FC2. He had a lot of appearances for them across 2 seasons, but out of nowhere, you see that he goes back to Spain and he's trying to, make his way after his time with Austin FC2. And I thought that it was very interesting that the team that he signed for, the graphic that they posted, they used Ruben Bonachera in the Villarreal kit because he used to play for Villarreal before he joined Austin FC2. They didn't even bother of adding a photo of Ruben Bonachera in his Austin FC2 colors. Not even no care in the world, pretending that his time here never existed. That's a little bit disrespectful in my eyes, but it is what it is. I wished him luck. I reached out to him and I said, hey, mate, it was a pleasure covering your time here with Austin FC2. Very elegantly, the player said, hey, thank you for everything. Best of luck as well. So, just mutual respect there. I got to interview him a couple of times, but you knew that I was always at those Austin FC2 games. I loved going to those games. I think it was one of the highlights, me personally, in 2025. And no, I just wish him the most luck that anybody can wish on to anybody. He's a professional player, a good lad, 100%. And no, I just want to see him succeed. I want to see every Austin FC2 player succeed, more with the organization here in Austin. But hey, if you got to make a move, so be it. We also saw other players leave. Nico Van Rijn, he made the move as well back to Spain. And there was a couple loans to USL. We had to get a loan move to the USL. We saw Peter Grogan, leave Austin FC2 to go back home. And there's new players coming into the door. There's the gentleman that they got from Ibrahim Assal, if I'm not mistaken, that is his last name. But he's going to be a fun one to watch. So a lot of things going on with Austin FC2. Don't think that it is a boring side. They're good games to watch at that Parma field for the MLS Next Pro level. And I know folks are going to criticize the level or whatnot, but I personally have a good time when I go watch those games. But pretty well, I mean, any thoughts on Ruben? I know it's hard to keep up with every single level of this team, but in my opinion, I thought Ruben was gonna make something of himself with Austin FC.
Yeah, it's I mean, it can be a lot sometimes, but I think you do a really good job covering these guys. I learn a lot every time you go out there and interview them. But he's going back home. He's going back to Spain. The same thing with Peter. I think these guys maybe get homesick sometimes. If it's not working out, or they're not having the best of times here in Austin, it might be just a little hard for them to stay because of that. Think he is going into what seems to be, I think, a pretty decent team. I did a quick little search right now. I think they're in the fourth division of
Mm,
Spanish football.
mm.
So it's he's going back home. Might not be a permanent spot for him. But I
Six
think
months,
definitely somewhere where he can climb up and maybe make a little bit of a name for himself. But
100%.
at the end of the day, he went back home, and once you're surrounded with familiar people, familiar culture,
Language,
language, you can probably strive a little better. So good luck to
100%.
him. Seems like he was a nice guy on and off the field. So wish him nothing but the best.
Hey, and he was also kind of getting into the whole Longhorn culture. He went to a couple of games, I think. I think he at one point he was even dating a girl that was going to UT because I would see him after the matches and she would go down into the field and they would hang out. I think he uploaded some photos as well with her. So no, I mean he was definitely kind of integrating into the culture. UT, I mean that's the biggest maybe culture thing in Austin.
Yeah,
Svatok is also kind of getting into that as well. So that's one of the fun things to do here, 100%. So, I'm not going to say that, oh, we're going to miss him so much, but I did want to see him grow with Austin FC, the Austin FC 2 side. And we also got to mention, Primo, that this team, Austin FC 2, they have a new manager this season. They have Jason Shackle, former U16 head coach, former Premier League center back. So I'm excited to see him work with this new group, and I'm excited to see this new group under Jason Shacks. So we'll see what happens there. Best of luck to him. And last thing, Primo, the academy. I want to send my. I want to tonight. I'm gonna do a little prayer. I'm doing a little prayer for my boy Lucas Hernandez, young lad, academy lad, called up to the Puerto Rican under 17s, if I'm not mistaken. Hurt himself, brother. Uploaded a photo the other day of a cast, not a cast, but like one of those big braces on his right knee. I felt gutted for him. I reached out to my boy RDZ Flicks. He's always at the academy games, and I said, "Hey man, did you see Lucas got hurt?" And he was like, "Yeah, he got hurt." And the best thing about these young injuries is that you're young and your bones have, you recover faster. And Austin has some of the best facilities, some of the best doctors working here. And if he's back already, I'm sure that they're going to be taking really good care of him. But I wish him a speedy recovery. He's a good lad. He's actually walked up to me at the performance center during media availability days, and he's walked up to me. He said hello, shaking my hand. When that happens, I just know that this kid has good morals. I know that he has good parents at home and respecting people. That goes a long way with me, mate, 100%. So I wish him a speedy recovery. I wish him all the best. And I can't wait for him to get back on the field because he's a player to watch with the Austin FC Academy side 100%. So speedy recovery, Lucas Hernandez, wishing you the best. Now, another player that's back, Primo, from the Academy side is Jazzy Zardes' son, Gian Zardes. I saw him score a goal. He uploaded to his story outside the box, pinged it into the back of the net. And during the Arbolito Cup when Alex and Diego were out there? You remember whenever we were out there covering the lads, we were covering a game of 12-year-olds. Like if we were covering the Copa America, we had a live session out there. We were talking about the game. It was literal kids, brother, playing in this tournament. But I was really excited to go out there to see Gian Zardes because I've heard so many good things about him. Me, myself, I've seen it with my own eyes. He's a fantastic player. He's playing 2 years up, if I'm not mistaken. And we follow Jazzy Zardes, a couple folks from his family as well. And they're always posting, pieces of, videos on their story of this little boy just locked in the gym, just locked in, just, doing bicycles, just, doing work, training or whatnot, eating healthy snacks, reading books and being a good brother. I think whenever you're you're a young academy player, yes, the performances on the field matter, but also how you're growing up, how you treat others, how you work with others. I think that's also a really big factor in these young players' lives. And this is a player that has a lot of resources, 100%, But one thing is having the resources, and another thing is taking advantage of those resources, Primo. I think that's a big factor. And I'm excited to see what this player is going to turn out to. And I'm praying, I'm hoping, Primo, that Austin does not do what they've done in multiple times before and let young talent go somewhere else. How many times have you heard me complain about a young player, a talented young player from the academy that has moved on? I really hope that this is not one of those cases. Keep John in the system, keep Lil Zardes in the system. I really think this player is going to be something massive. And he's just one player. The academy has a lot of young, talented players right now. But John is somebody that's easy to point out because of his work ethic. Obviously, because of the kind of pedigree that he possesses. He's almost like Chicharito. Chicharito's father played, his grandpa played as well. So you just know that he's destined for that. And I think he knows that in his head too, because he just seems like a little soccer player, bro. He seems like a mini soccer player, and I'm really excited for what he's gonna turn into. But any I know pretty much tough to kind of go off of what I said here, but you have any maybe thoughts on the Academy boys?
I think it's exciting to see. I think it's good to know that these young players are going within the Austin FC Academy. Players from these once really well known soccer players. Well, I mean, the other started still well known, but um, you don't these academy games. You can go out, you can enjoy them, and sometimes you might run into soccer players kid or son or daughter playing,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's pretty cool to see,
Yeah.
and kind of see how they develop and how they kind of walk in or into their parents' footsteps. um like another one right now, Messi's sons in the Inter Academy,
Oh yeah.
things like
Yeah.
that. It's good to see. I think at the end of the day, it's just good to see these kids grow within the American soccer scene, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
There's good academies out here in the United States. Austin FC, I don't think has really made a name for themselves yet. But I think they hold on to these kids if they know how to manage them, and they can make something happen. I know it hasn't really
100%.
been too good lately, but I still have hope. I think the academy can one day be one of those really good ones. So
100%.
um,
They
I
have
think
all
at
the
the end of the day,
advantages.
yeah,
All the advantages.
everything's there, and they attract people, they attract players. Parents want to put their kids into this academy for sure. So there's something there.
100%, man. And I want to send a shout out to RDZ Flicks, like I mentioned, and also my G Osvaldo. They were out there shooting the Academy games this weekend. Now, the problem with doing the pod on Sundays is that the boys they play on Saturday, and the club doesn't update the scores until like Monday or Tuesdays when we know exactly what happened. I couldn't make it out this weekend. I had I was with the fam. We had something going on in the fam or whatnot. But no, usually, when I can, I'm out there watching these boys. But shout out to RDZ Flick. Shout out to Osvaldo for also being out there. His first time out there. So, do we have a talented group of shooters going into 2026? An amazing group. I'm very excited to work with these guys and see what we can cook up. But what I do know, Primo, based off of what RDZ was telling me, is that the U18s they tied 1-1. Chris Ayala, star boy. He was an all-star for the MLS Next team, for the MLS Next West. He scored a goal, but it was offsides. The game ended 1-1. The U16 game, it was good. This is literally what RDZ told me. He said the U16 game was good. 4 goals in one half. That's better than the Super Bowl. That's better than the Super Bowl, mate. 100%. And I had mentioned that the 15s needed a big win because they got absolutely, I mean, I hate to say it like this, but belt to ass 6-0 or 6-1, I think, against the Houston Dynamo at the end. I mean, it's the Dynamo, bro. They're never gonna let these kids forget that. There's always gonna be brought up. But the U18s, if I'm not mistaken, they got the lick back and they had a big defeat. They had a big win against Houston also. So we'll get the updated results of this weekend. They'll be coming out. We'll get those graphics out so people see exactly what happened. But no, if you have time, go check out the Academy boys on Saturdays at the St. Davis Performance Center. The games are free. You can take your kids. they probably think that they're watching an Austin FC game. You know what I'm saying? I've seen a lot of little kids go to Austin FC 2 matches and think that they're watching Brandon Vasquez out there on the field. So if you can, go check them out, support the boys. It's usually parents, friends, sometimes girlfriends out there that I see. But it'd be cool to see some regular Austin FC fans go out there and support the academy lads because they would really like it. I know that the Austin FC 2 players really appreciate when there's a packed house. So the academy boys need some love as well. So remember, the games are free. They're usually Saturdays, early in the day. You don't gotta kill your whole Saturday. You can use your Saturday morning. Go check them out. They're free at the St. David's Performance. I think we can cut it off right there, Primo. We're about an hour and 15 minutes into the program today. But we will be back next week to review and discuss anything that happens with the Austin FC side and the second team and also the academy lads. And I just want to remind everybody, if you want to join the Patreon, you can go ahead and that's a way that you can support us going into this year. We got a lot of things cooking up. But if you're already a Patreon member, thank you for all the support. One thing that I have to mention before we get out of here, we got an interview with Fabian Renko that's going to be dropping this week on his thoughts with Austin FC. Been keeping that one quiet. We did that one midweek, and that will be released this week coming up. And also working on getting some interviews with some folks from the academy. So I'm not going to mention any names, but I'm planning out. I had a hectic 2 weeks previous. I had a lot of plans, but I actually recently heard this quote, Primo, that said, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. And I've literally experienced that the past 2 to 3 weeks. But anyways, back on track. Excited to go back to where I was at 2-3 weeks ago. And there's a lot of interviews that have been kind of postponed because of what was happening internally. But now I'm ready to go. And I'm excited to get some of these people on the show to, kind of walk us through the day-to-day of various levels in this organization. So, Primo, have a good night, mate. Go rewatch the Super Bowl halftime show if you want to. But I'm gonna probably watch the Austin FC versus St. Louis game one more time before going to bed. I think that's what I'm gonna do. But all right, Primo, anything else that you want to say, bro?
No, I mean we get closer to the season. I think we have some good, like you mentioned, some good content coming out. I think we always have some decent guests on. I think every time we get someone on, it's always thoughtfully planned out. So I'm excited to see these guests and give the content to the people. Like you mentioned, join the Discord. Discord's always popping. Patreon, all that good stuff. And yeah, one more week closer to the home opener. Oh, and
Last thing. Oh, go ahead.
Home opener. We got James. James was announced.
Yeah, but I don't think he's gonna make it to match day one. I don't think so, bro. I don't think so. Now, I would imagine that there's pressure for him to start playing from the Colombia national team side, but he got a cupcake deal with Minnesota, bro. He got a cupcake deal. So he's going to do whatever he wants. Think of Sergio Ramos with Monterrey. It's very similar kind of vibe, bro. Like he can probably play when he wants. Maybe he probably is going to tell the coach, "Hey, I want this guy on the pitch." So there was a moment where I wanted him with Austin. He was supposedly linked with Austin. Tom Boger came out and debunked that. But there was a moment that I wanted him to be with Austin. And I had a lot of our friends, Primo. I went to Cheetah's house this weekend, and they were asking me about, hey, James, why didn't it work out? And I told them, I was like, guys, like Minnesota presented him exactly what he wanted. The fact that he was bouncing around multiple places was because maybe they were presenting him serious projects where he needed to be at least running 70% of the time. In Minnesota, I don't think we're going to be getting that from James at all. He's going to be over there chilling, feet kicked up. He's going to score some goals. He's going to have a banger every now and then, for sure, a free kick or something. James is probably the greatest Colombian player of all time. I don't know if that's a hot take. Maybe that's recency bias from my end. I don't know at length the full Colombian national team history, but James is fantastic. I mean, you got the jersey. The things that he did at Real Madrid were fantastic. The thing he did at the 2014 World Cup still live on to this day. So I'm happy for him. I'm happy he's coming to MLS. I'm happy he got what he wanted at the end of the day. But with Austin, at least what I think is that they had a serious project for him. If the interest was real, I think they had a serious project for him, and he was like, nah, I'm good. Thanks, though. I think that was the case, man. But if he comes on match day one, get ready for belt to ass, mate. Belt to ass. Belt to ass. Ahmed Rodriguez. But anyways, best of luck to him. I wish him all the best. And it's going to be a big push for this league going into this 2026 season. And last thing I wanted to say, shout out to our very good friend, Diego Valencia's brother, my G, David. It is his birthday. Just want to send him a quick shout out. You know, we watch games with him sometimes at Q2 Stadium. He's a very chill guy. He's pretty quiet, but I want to send a shout out to my G David right there. Diego Valencia's brother.
David.
Shout out David.
Happy
Feliz
birthday,
cumpleaños.
David. Cool
Shout out to
guy.
my
Yeah,
lad.
we definitely watched some games with him.
He's chill,
happy
bro.
birthday, bro. Yeah.
He's chill. I like him. He's chill. He doesn't say much. That's why I like him. But alrighty, let's get out of here, mate. Have a good night, primo. We'll see you soon. Ciao.